Welcome to Jumpstart Your Joy, a podcast that looks at the inspiration, intention, and actionable steps to help you jumpstart joy in the world, in your life, and in other people's lives. This is your host, Paula Jenkins.
Welcome to Jumpstart Your Joy. This is Paula Jenkins with co-host
Mallory Wysong.
And we are coming to you live from She Podcast Live here for episode 209. And we are so excited to be talking about the immense amount of joy and excitement and connection and community that we are experiencing here on the first day of She Podcast Live. So this episode will be about 20 minutes long, and we're going to go through the top 5 things that we are noticing and experiencing while we are here. So before we get to the show, if you want to find out more about Jumpstart Your Joy, you can find everything at the website at jumpstartyourjoy.com, and you can find show notes, which of course, and this will give you more links back to other things, some more insight, and you can find that at jumpstartyourjoy.com/she podcasts. So, Mal, let's just jump into this.
Let's do it.
I think the first thing that I have noticed in spirit of joy is the magic of the connection that is going on at this conference.
Yes, absolutely.
There is really a deep sense of presence, meaning people are here, they're listening deeply to each other, they're approaching things, as we talked about last week with Oren J. Sofer, in a real spirit of curiosity and care, which is really meaningful and beautiful to see, like 700 people coming to something in this way.
It's a lot of people to show up and immediately find some kind of common ground. Everyone we've talked to, we've found something that we have in common with them, and that's really been magical.
Yeah, and sometimes it's like specific. There's other joy podcasters here, which is totally awesome. And then there's also people that like we have experiences that are so similar as to how long our show's been going on, or some of the challenges that we have experienced in growing, or just some of the absolute joy that we have in finding our craft and getting to share it with each other. Going into number 2 is the altruism that we are seeing here, which kind of ties into that curiosity and care. Mal, do you want to talk about what you've seen?
Yeah, everyone here seems to be connecting with people and then thinking about how they can help them. If it's, I've got someone that would be great for your show, or are you hungry? Have you eaten? Like, it's the simplest things. Everyone is coming from a place of wanting to give and be there and connect in like a very open way.
Yeah, it's really inspiring and such a different kind of tone or feeling from other conferences where I have been, where there's this kind of sense of, we got to get down to see all the vendors and see what kind of stuff they're giving out and like, take. And I think this is a really interesting space. I mean, this is 700 women. We all love this craft of podcasting so much. And it's really beautiful to see that people are coming at it from such a space of, I want to support you, a fellow person that I have literally never met. And like just sitting in the keynote this morning, I was sitting next to a woman who's like, hey, have you ever heard of Sarah Bliss? She might be a great person for your show. And I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you. And then in return, I said, the CEO of Periscope is Liz Ross. Hello, Liz. And I said, you know what? She might be a great fit for your show, which is all about leadership and growth and like, how do you manage people and inspire them in the workplace? Which, I mean, our shows aren't the same, but we just helped each other out, and it was pretty cool.
So awesome. And also kind of following into the altruism and what you're saying about everyone wanting to like grab for stuff at other conferences. There's been a real spirit of receiving here. Mm-hmm. Not expectation, but receiving.
Yes.
It's been really beautiful to see and to receive ourselves.
and that's our third thing, is the spirit of receiving. It's really interesting too so I'm also a speaker here. I'm doing something about mind mapping and content planning, which I'm super stoked about. But the interesting thing has been that as a speaker, we've had multiple opportunities to meet with the 2 people who put this whole thing together. And the spirit with which they have approached us and set this whole thing up. I mean, from the first time we all got on a call, which we all had a call. I don't know any other conference that happens at. And they had a woman who very much set the stage of what is it that you want to receive. So setting the whole tone for a conference in that way, I think is important, because then many people could take this. Maybe you manage people. Maybe you have a company, maybe if you're a life coach, you interact with other life coaches, but like setting that as the intention for something is so freaking powerful, because I think that even the people that are here that don't know that was the discussion, like they all feel it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned something like there's nothing competitive here either, which is a breath of fresh air. Because I feel like sometimes, I'll just say it, when you get into a male-dominated space, which I believe podcasting actually is.
It is. We have the numbers. It is.
We have the numbers. And when that happens, you start to feel like you have to play the game the way other people are playing it. But here we're seeing something totally different.
It's totally different. Everyone has been so open about their ideas. Even if they haven't started their podcast, they're sharing what their idea is.
Yeah.
And then seeing their excitement makes other people excited. And everyone just, again, wants to lift everyone up. And I think the big thing there is that this is for women. This is something that the founders, Jess and Elsie, have put together. They created this, and it's all on purpose.
Precisely on purpose. The other thing I've noticed that's just hitting me right now as we're talking is, and I feel like this is an idea that's bubbling up because it's also something that Lizzie of Collective Gain talks about. You guys can listen to her. I interviewed her on a past episode of her show, which I'll just link up to in the show notes. But she talks about The Littlest Farm. Have you seen it, Mal?
No, I haven't.
Oh my gosh. So it's on Netflix, I believe. I'll link that up as well. But it's about people who buy a very small farm. I believe it's in Southern California. And when they buy it, it's a desert. Like it's just, you couldn't grow anything on this land. So what they do is they hire a man who has this expertise of ecosystems. And what happens is amazing. Like they bring this earth back to life by doing things where they set an ecosystem in motion. So they start to develop manure and earthworms, and then they start planting their orchard, and then they start to put that manure and those earthworms around it. Anyway, so the whole thing starts to feed on each other, and as soon as there's a problem, well, there's an answer in nature that then helps solve that problem. So like they realize partway through, I promise this is good stuff. In their orchard, they start to have this infestation of snails, and they're like, well, what are we going to do? Well, they had geese that lived in the pond, but then they're like, here, we bring it. Well, it turns out that geese do eat snails. So everything just kept solving itself. And I feel like, here we come back to the point here of receiving. I feel like when you set something, an ecosystem in motion of everybody can receive and everybody can be altruistic, it feeds each other instead of taking away from each other. So they're beautiful.
All that talk about manure, but it's because
it's not just shit. Sorry. The other one is something, number 4 was something you brought up, Mal. Do you want to talk about the mask?
Yeah, Jess in her opening speech this morning was talking about how in a room of 700 women, no one seems to be wearing a mask. And I know the women listening to this understand what we mean by mask, but it's when you present yourself as something that isn't really all of who you are. And everyone here has been made to feel, I mean, from my perspective, it seems like everyone here has been made to feel like this is a safe space and it is okay to show up exactly how you are and be your weird, crazy, chatty, laughy self, like whoever that is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I feel like they've really set it up to be in support of that too. I mean, our keynote was with Kirsten, is it Meitzner? Mm-hmm. And she's the host of Buy the Book and a bunch of other shows. And I mean, she really shared authentically, things that maybe I'll just even go with I statements here. I know as a little kid, I was told often that I shared too much and that I should stop sharing some of the secrets. And some of that I think is in good taste, right? Like I don't talk about how much I make. I don't talk about how much my house costs. Like that's just not a comfort zone.
Right.
But I think there's some things that are about our story and that feel like maybe they're even family secrets that maybe we just need to put out there because there's a connection point back to the magic of connection and number 1. Where when we drop the mask and let go of feeling like there may be shame or there may be a reason we don't want to share that thing, then we can be in this space of altruism and receiving and connection because, we know that we've had shared experiences. And I think that's really the beauty of what they have set up here about dropping the mask and showing up in an authentic space.
It's actually making me think about the ecosystem as well, because when you feel safe to drop the mask, you're actually giving someone else permission to drop their mask as well. And that's kind of what's happening. There's this building. I feel like probably by Sunday, we're all going to be so ourselves that we won't recognize ourselves because we're not used to just being. So
Yes.
really exciting.
Goosebumps.
I know.
I cannot wait. Well, and I also feel, I mean, this is off script, sorry. But I also feel like there's such a sense of momentum here of like,
Yes.
there are 700 people who are stepping into their freaking voice. They're being told and being shown, and it's going to be a repetition of things that they are so worthy and they are so loved and they are here for a purpose, and that we are all stepping into our own spark of divinity when we start to share our story, that like the ripple effect of 700 women stepping into some version of that and then sharing it. I mean, it's
I
like
know.
big.
I know.
I'm going to do some breath work.
And breathe.
So we'll move on to number 5. I said this in Instagram. Jumpstart Your Joy is my handle if you want to go look. And you can see, we're going to be posting some pictures, so you'll see some of the conference stuff here too. But I've been among my people before, you know, and so if you are people that I've hung out with, I don't want anyone here to take this the wrong way, but I have never felt so among my people as I do here. And I think, one, I never knew that I would fall in love with podcasting. I mean, just sitting across here in a booth, like with a real mic on a boom handle and real earphones from Mallory's, kind of freaking me out right this second. And it's taking me back to, so my dad used to do this fake radio show with his cousin Robert when we were little, like when I was a little kid, and he had an 8-track. And Robert and he would send each other reel to reels, like the big, and they would send a reel to each other like twice a month, where they would like play the hits and talk about what's going on in their life. It was like early.
It's like pen pals, but via radio.
It was like an early analog podcast.
So awesome.
That's great.
Using snail mail and everything.
Dad, I love you so much.
Oh, hi, Dad.
Thanks for showing me what was possible and like just doing it. I mean, he had an audience of 1, and that is the sweetest thing I've ever heard of. And I feel like those people, it doesn't matter what their audience is, but that they are speaking their voice and they're sharing their joy. We've heard that so many times. Mm-hmm. And they're tapping into that thing that they need to share and that needed a space and that maybe wasn't there before. And we're all here and we're like, oh my God, there's more of us.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we walked around the corner into the expo floor and I saw ladies doing a podcast about cats. I mean, tell me I'm not among my people.
And they even had a thing where you can guess how many mice were in this little
the tube, and then you win something.
So awesome. I don't see that at other conferences. And thank you. What was the name of that show?
Podcats.
So go listen. I don't know what it's about, but
I don't either, but clearly cats.
We love you, podcasts.
We love it. Yay. Podcats are go.
So awesome. So yeah, among our people. And it's interesting, the diversity here, both in ideas and in people and backgrounds and races and sizes and shapes. I think this is an interesting time to also talk about the numbers and the stats of the people that are here. So of these 700, 90% of these people, it is their first conference ever. Which is amazing, because I think I've only ever officially been to one other conference, which was for some software that we were using when I worked at a credit union. Mm-hmm.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
Ooh, yeah.
Software.
A lot of selfie sticks being given out. A lot of drinking by the dudes. A lot of energy to keep up with that drinking by the dudes. Yeah, in Vegas, which...
There you go.
I love Vegas. But then the diversity side as well is that 40% of the speakers, I think they have about 70 speakers, 65 to 70. And so 40% of them are women of color and or LGBTQ. And many of them are in both categories there. So that's who this crowd is. And it's really beautiful to see the space and to see how many different people are coming together over something they love. Like I would like to think we all feel like we are among our people.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. And then last but not least.
Definitely not least, because I think this one has flown through this whole conversation.
Is the energy of this place. My lens is always, for the show, going to be joy. And how do we find our joy? And how do we choose joy in the most improbable places and in the most difficult of situations? And so many of these people are talking. Like, one of the other speakers has a show about divorce. I'll put it in the show notes because I cannot recall what it is right now. Maybe it was
How to Do Divorce Right, I think.
There we go, by
Yes.
Jennifer. Also, like, she's beautiful. She started crying. Like, I started crying when I walked in. It was like a similar emotion that she had, but that she's created a show out of a place of, I mean, she even said, like, this was really hard. Like, this was not the easiest choice. And yet now she is happy. And now she can help other people through that. And her other angle is how to decide not to have a divorce, just so.
Yeah.
So if you're in that space, go check her out. But it's that nugget, and that's the same thing that I like to talk about for people who are looking to find their own show, is something about how do you connect with that nugget inside of yourself where there was a really hard emotion where you were like, I know I could do this different. This was like life-changing, transformational for me, for my own story. That was the story of the birth of my son, and I knew I wanted something more after being diagnosed with PTSD. How do you tap into that and say, if I could just help one more person, I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to share this story, but in the service of joy, I'm going to go forth and I'm going to put this out in the world. And I think I'm seeing a ton of women who are doing that same thing.
Yes.
Scary as shit. I'm saying yes. I'm going to do it anyway. So,
that energy, everyone has mentioned Joy that has been on stage, which is just, I get a ripple every time. I'm like, oh, Joy, there it is again. And you're right. People are sharing things that are very vulnerable, and they're doing it from that place. If I can just help one person. And that, again, is the energy here. But there's 700 of us. And so if we can all just help one person, just think about how much that's going to expand. I've got chills. I have no words. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Just amazing. And so inspiring for someone like me and Mallory, where we're like, I love this space. I love following joy. So it's just always good to see people that are tapping into their own purpose and their own joy, saying yes and running off to do that thing that is their purpose and at the core of their soul.
And then, on the other side of that is there are a lot of people that have had hardships in their lives, and they're coming here and sharing. But I think the other thing we're getting from this is how to keep that spark, that nugget alive when things get hard. Because podcasting here, like what we're learning is how to make podcasting your business. How do you, and it could be a hobby as well. That's fine. But it's going to get hard, and you're going to want to quit. And I think what we're getting here are those sparks that are going to keep us going and help us remember when things get hard, I'm doing this for that one person.
Yeah. Yeah, Katie of The Newsworthy talked about that a little bit. I'm so glad you brought it up. But just how do you play when in the middle, when nobody's watching, when you're just kind of doing the thing and you're showing up week after week and you're not getting awards, you're not getting the big notice, you're just quietly doing your craft. And that is holds as much import as the times when you're at the top of iTunes or whatever up. So there are our top 6 things that we have noticed about the Amazing She Podcast Live, and super excited to be recording this here with you guys. I want to give a big shout out to Buzzsprout, who has hosted us here in this lovely recording booth.
Yes, this is awesome. We're in a booth in the middle of the expo floor on in a fishbowl. It's amazing.
We're like people staring at it.
My introvert person is like, no, what are we doing?
Yeah, so big shout out to them. I'll put them in the show notes as well. And thanks you guys so much for tuning in this week. If you want to find out more about Jumpstart Your Joy, you can find it, of course, jumpstartyourjoy.com. Show notes for this one are at jumpstartyourjoy.com/she podcasts. And if you want to tune in next week, I hope you will come on back, because we have the amazing Kenma O joining us. She wrote an amazing book called Target Funding, and she's come from a background of homelessness and abuse, and she helps entrepreneurs find interesting ways to fund themselves and to kind of rise above the noise of their past. So, so good. I hope you'll come back next week. And until then, I hope that your days are filled with so much joy.